Dear Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you that you are still God, even in times of uncertainty and times where we have to adjust and change what we do. Lord, you have the strength and the ability that we need. And so we thank you for being with us as we join together in community to help support one another just through transitions that many of us may be going through. We praise you for all those who will be joining us today, and we ask for your wisdom and guidance. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. So thank you all for joining us. Today we're going to talk about our tips for working from home. I know for many, this is quite a dramatic transition. So we thought we could help by providing these resources and giving a little bit of personal experience to help you with this transition. I am the digital strategist for the social media and big data department at the North American division, and I have been working entirely from home since about August 2019 because of health issues with my pregnancy, and I have continued working from home since coming back from maternity leave. And Angeline can speak to her perspective, but now she's working from home as a result of COVID-19, and she's sharing an office space. So we're just going to talk and share and have, just talk about different ideas and different scenarios. And if you guys have a question, so this is Zoom, and you have two ways that you can ask questions. You can pop into the chat box, and you can also interact with everyone else in that chat box, or you can also actually use the Q&A function, which would be a little more helpful for us, but we know some people have trouble finding, and you can actually type your questions in there, and we'll get to them. We'll pay attention to both the chat box and the Q&A box as we move through this presentation. And do you want to say a little bit about yourself, Angeline?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Angeline Brower, and I am the Health Ministries Director for the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. And I am also newly married. It's been, just almost 4 months now. So learning to adjust to that reality of sharing a housing space with someone who I'm now also sharing an office space with, because his office, he works at the General Conference, his office is also closed, so we're both working from home. My background is in public health and nutrition, and my goal here is to help us think about how to stay healthy in this transition. And one of the primary concerns that we are looking at for future is emotional health and the mental health concerns. So we want to make sure that you are all equipped ahead of time to hopefully avoid maybe some of those problems later on.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I think first we're going to talk about tips and how to create or maintain structure in your day. We are, of course, creatures of habit. And so those habits that we have built over the duration of our career can be really helpful in helping us transition to our new reality. So, that could be simply as, things like sticking to your regular schedule. Taking breaks, waking up at your usual time, taking your usual lunch break, and, you're basically keeping as much normalcy as possible. So anything you used to do at the usual times, try and maintain that structure that you've already built for yourself.
And this is really important for your physical health too, because your body actually likes routine. Your body likes to wake up and go to bed at about the same time. It likes to eat at about the same time, having your meals at about the same time every day. So that's something that will also keep you healthy, as well as help you adjust to a new work environment that you find yourself in.
Yeah, and I believe, when we were talking earlier, Angeline, you talked about staying hydrated. Now, this is something we always talk about as being a healthy habit to have, but how much water should people be drinking?
Well, it's actually going to depend on how much fruits and vegetables you eat, believe it or not.
Really?
If you do well with your fruits and veggies, they tend to have a lot of water in them. So the recommendation is, if you're getting your 5 to 7 to 8 servings of fruits and veggies a day, you could probably do with 6 cups of water itself, but you may need more. I tend to push a little bit more to stay more hydrated. But yes, keep your water bottle near you. And a great way to take a break is when you have to get up and go refill your water. So keep that routine going as you're sitting or, in your workspace where you are.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful tip. And another idea that I've been experimenting with is keeping your lunch routine. And that not only involves like your food prep, whether you prepare it the night before or you prepare it on the spot or the morning of, but also eating with the people you normally eat with. But using these digital technologies like we're using Zoom, so you can still talk with them face to face, but it's your usually schedule. So if you're used to, eating with a certain friend or a coworker on Wednesdays, keep that appointment.
Absolutely. That will keep you socially connected, and also give you something fresh to look forward to during the work week. And reconnecting with your coworkers, that's really important. You don't want to lose touch with them. And also, you maybe want to think about if you have other family members now in the home with you. If your children are not able to go to school right now, you may need to adjust your schedule slightly. So be a little bit of flexible, but try to maintain a structure and keep that appointment with that coworker on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then just tying into this idea of keeping your schedule and keeping your routine is actually keeping your regular scheduled prayer and Bible study times as well. And again, using these digital tools. So if you're usually meeting with a group of 2 or 3 people, keep meeting with them.
Absolutely. Yes. And also keep moving. Movement is hugely important, right? We need to maintain our physical activity. Now, depending on what your space is like in your home, you may or may not have enough room to walk inside, but it's okay to even just walk around in a circle in your living room, clear the space, make it safe for you to walk. But every hour, take just a 5-minute break, get up, stretch. My husband and I actually just put a trampoline in our office. So
Really?
it's not a large one, but
Mhm.
it's enough that we can take a quick break if we need to and get some movement. Um,
Mhm.
Make that a part of your day, because that will also help with your mental ability,
Oh,
increase your focus.
absolutely. One routine that I actually kept when I started working from home is this idea of a morning commute. So if you're used to being in the car for 15, 20 minutes, go out and take a walk for 15, 20 minutes if that's still possible for you, or get on a treadmill or do a morning exercise video or something just to get your blood flowing. And for me, it helps me think so much more. It helps me think more creatively, and it gets me in that frame of mind of going somewhere to work, even though I'm just going upstairs. So,
So it prepares you for the day, right? To start
yeah,
your workday by keeping up that commute.
yeah, I have my morning commute, and it allows me to think about what I'm going to do for the day, to get myself in the right headspace, to transition from, the chaos of the morning with the baby to, sitting down at my desk and working. And again, it's great. It's good, healthy for you. You get your steps in, and hopefully a little vitamin D as well.
Absolutely. And is it possible to maintain social distancing even if you take a walk outside?
Yes, well, I hope for a lot of people that's possible. For us where we live, we have a lot of trails and they're not heavily populated, especially right now. So I am able to do that. But if not, we have a neighbor that's walking around their house in the morning. So you can just stay in your own yard and just get a few steps in, get yourself moving, just so that you can get in the right frame of mind. Because if you're like me, sometimes I can hyper focus and I can sit here for like 2 hours and not move, and it's not healthy.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, what about lunch breaks? Is that a good time to take a quick walk, get out there again?
I think so. And I typically at lunch, I get up, I exercise. Sometimes I do like a 15-minute exercise video. I'm really into Pilates and stuff like that. So I'll change into some workout clothes, do a quick workout. Again, it gets that oxygen flowing through my body. It helps me think. It gives me a brain rest by doing something physical with my body. And I feel like when I go back to work, I'm so much more productive.
Mm. So you mentioned changing out of your work clothes. Do you actually get dressed for work when you're working from home?
I do. And I've actually always done this because I really believe that mindset is everything. So if I am going to work, I get dressed like I'm going into the office. I'm not just dressed up today because we're doing a webinar. Every morning I get up and, do my hair. I happen to put on makeup. If makeup's your thing, put on makeup. I get dressed, and more than just the waist up, I have nice pants on. I have to admit, I don't wear shoes, but it is inside my house. But I get myself into that mindset by, getting dressed, making myself feel like I'm presentable, making myself feel professional. And again, you never know when those unexpected video calls are going to come in. So it's just a good practice anyway, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I did an interview just
Mhm.
yesterday morning, and then my husband, because we share an office space, he uses video conferencing as well. And
Mhm.
so they could see me. So it was a good thing I was dressed from head to toe, right?
Yes.
So if you're sharing a space, especially, and if you've got video conferencing, and even if you're not planning for a video conference, it
Mhm.
might be a good idea just to get dressed just in case something comes up.
Yes, and this actually, I think, ties into our next point, which is to utilize digital tools for face-to-face interactions as much as possible. And you don't want to hesitate to do that because you're still in your pajamas. So, and it helps us to, if you would normally get up and speak to someone about a particular project or whatever it is that you're working together as a team, then take that as an opportunity to, again, speak to them face to face. Because when you're speaking to someone face to face, it's so much more productive. You can hear tone, you can see their facial expressions. I just feel like it's simpler than writing a long email, or, if it requires more than a text or a message in the chat box. It's also just a way for you to stay socially connected, because again, just because we're in social isolation doesn't mean we need to grow distant from our friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. And you know what? There are some sociologists who are hoping that we would use the term physical distancing and not social distancing. So we
Yeah.
do want to maintain those social
Mhm.
connectedness, even though we're physically separated.
Yes, I
And,
think that's an excellent point. And
and if it is just a quick call, even on video, why not stand up for the call? You
yeah,
know,
that's a good
some movement right there.
Yeah. Stand up for the call. I mean, I think everybody here is so understanding because we're all in this new world. We're all in this kind of topsy-turvy moment where our whole society has been turned upside down. So, people are having fun with it, and they're also being very human. But just like if you were in the office and you had to stand or whatever, just be human, be open, and just try to carry on your day like you would normally.
Absolutely.
And luckily, we have the technologies to keep us staying connected. And this is so important in terms of mental health, not just for the extrovert brothers and sisters, but also for the introverts. And I'm sure you can talk more about that.
Absolutely. You know, even introverts such as myself, and I'm highly introverted, we still need connection. And isn't that how God created us? He created us to be in community with people. But it really is important that we are keeping a connection with reality of the world around us, and not just, the reality of the COVID situation, because that can be overwhelming. But the
Yeah.
reality that there are people around us, there are coworkers who are, you've talked to them before, you know what's happening with in their families' lives. We also have family members. We need to maintain that connection with them.
Yeah.
Um, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the major concerns we have following the social isolation process, for however it may last, is the disconnect that people may feel and the loneliness that some are actually feeling right now. So we want to take every opportunity to connect with people in meaningful ways, not just about work. So that lunch with a coworker, you can sit in front of your video camera and eat together, you know, but make that connection, take that time. It really is very important to keep you going during these times.
Oh, yes, I think absolutely. And, what we don't want is those feelings of isolation to turn into depression. And, when we go back and, when this is all over, we don't want to go back to a fragmented society. We want to come back stronger than we were before. And part of what can help us do that is all these wonderful technologies that are at our fingertips. Like, many organizations have implemented Microsoft Teams. So if you would normally chit chat with someone through the day on a project, you ask them this question, ask them that, you can use Microsoft Teams, you can use text, you can even use, social media chat boxes if that is not distracting to you. Because I'm one of those people where if I'm staying connected and I'm chatting with different people, I'm 10 times more productive. But if, everything's kind of quiet and I'm not getting, much feedback on a project, then my productivity slows down. But I know for some, having texting or having those chat boxes open, they have to be a little bit more cautious because it can be distracting for them.
Yes, and so if, for some of us, we have to use social media as part of our job. But if there's a tendency for social media or anything else to distract you from working, because remember, you are working, right? I mean, these work hours, then definitely create those boundaries for yourself. Set a time limit for when you will be on it and when you shut it off, or even decide, I'm only going to do it on certain days of the week.
Yes, yes. No, I think that's a really good point. And that ties in nicely to this idea of setting boundaries between your work life and your personal life. And for me, I can be a little bit of a workaholic. So I have to set boundaries in time between when I'm working and my personal life. But I also have to, set boundaries as far as space as well. Because what I have found is if my computer is downstairs where I am with my husband and my child and it's open and I see an email come through or a ding or something on social media because I'm the digital strategist, I feel compelled to go check it. And I find it very distracting from my family. But the reality is, if I separate those two, then I'm more productive and I have more meaningful time with each if I keep them separated.
So maybe, Jamie, not only should we have a morning commute, but maybe we should also have an afternoon commute for when we come back home,
Yes.
as it were, after work.
I'm actually going to take a walk after this webinar.
Yes, yes. So definitely keeping that clear, because your family is very important to you too. And, working that through with even having family members at home is recognizing what those boundaries are that they may have to learn as well.
Mhm.
Because when you're at work, that's what you do, but there will be a time when you step away from work, and that can be their special time.
Yes, yes. And if you never step away, then your partner, you guys might be stuck in the same home together, but they might actually still be feeling very lonely because you're never truly away from work.
That's right. Absolutely.
And, this is going to be a stressful time and people are home, for many of us, we enjoy our work. So it might be very difficult to be home all the time. And what we don't want is it to cause tension in the marriage or in our other family relationships, because then we end up kind of muddling the waters between work and family.
Yeah. And actually, really, what we can do is think about this as an opportunity for building up those relationships, because
Mhm.
we are seeing them now 24 hours a day. And so how can we actually use the opportunity to create connectedness? And setting those boundaries is a
Mhm.
huge part of creating healthy relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So learning and negotiating how to do that is also a key part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also want to know that your partner respects your work and the time that you need to be at work. So making sure, especially if you have one partner who can't work right now, they might want extra attention, but you still have to work, 8 hours a day, or whatever your schedule is. And so, having that communication and saying, I have to be at work during these times. And that this actually ties into our next point of having a separate workspace, so that when you go to that space, that's where the physical boundary is drawn.
Absolutely. And that helps to create that feel and that sense of, okay, I'm now going to work.
Mhm.
And so your family members who are there in the home with you also recognize that this is work time for you.
Mhm.
And there could be distractions
Yeah.
that could happen, right?
Mhm.
There sometimes somebody just walks in, picks something up and walks out.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to get too worked up over those kinds of situations, but
Mhm.
also just everybody agreeing to, when I'm in this
Mhm.
space, there's a certain expectation for what I need to be doing.
Mhm, mhm. Now, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed in the fact that I can actually have a separate room that is closed off. That is my office space. It's also my creative space. You can see the music notes on the wall. So it's kind of been repurposed for a couple of different reasons. But what about people who don't have a separate room that they can go to? What can they do?
Well, one of the key things is to find a spot where everybody acknowledges that that is now your workspace,
Mhm.
whether it's the dining table, a corner of the dining table, or an area of the family room, whether it's, a part of well, I don't really recommend working in the bedroom, but if that's what you have, then just recognizing that that's the space. And one of the things that you want to do is set that up as your workspace. So that's where your computer is, your laptop. That's where your phone, probably using your cell phone for work now, but where your phone is, your documents that you need for work. And keep it clean.
Yeah.
Keep it uncluttered, so that when you go to that space, it may be small, it may be large, but at least you're coming in feeling prepared to actually get to work and not feeling frazzled because there's, the kids' toys are all over your documents, or whatever, or the dishes are scattered everywhere. So
Well,
try,
hopefully not working in the kitchen.
right, yes.
A bedroom if you are.
Yes, but it's possible. It's possible. But yes, try to find that space. You and your family can negotiate that. Find that spot that's going to be designated for you.
Yes, I think that's great advice. And then coming, more from your experience, how about sharing a workspace? And I'll talk about my experience later of sharing my workspace with a 5-month-old, but you actually share your workspace with your partner. So what have you found is helping you deal with that?
Well, my husband and I both are on conference calls quite frequently. So one of the key things, and he really brought this up, is can you please use a headphone when you're talking to someone?
Yeah.
A headset, an earbud, whatever it is, make sure you can isolate your conversation that way, because they also need to concentrate on the work that they're doing. And
Mhm.
so when we are on conference calls, we both do use a headset. Now, at this time, I came downstairs to our living area to do the webinar, and
Mhm.
he's up in the office. And
Mhm.
so we can also move to another space when we need to. So
Mhm.
having that flexibility is also important. It's being respectful to each other, allowing each other also accomplish the important tasks that they have going on. Now,
Mhm.
another thing, we actually had a challenge with this morning.
Mhm. Mhm.
We both had a conference call scheduled at the same time.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, that caused a little bit of an issue. And so definitely coordinating your conference times. Uh,
Mhm.
some of us will have meetings at the same time,
Mhm.
same day, every week. So we can communicate that to the person we're sharing the space with, and so see if they can adjust any impromptu calls that they may have.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
again, just somebody moves to another space. So try to coordinate your schedules, use that headset, and definitely keep each other keep talking to each other about how you can improve the situation for each other.
Yes, and I think also respecting each other's work style. Some people like to work or, study or whatever they're up to with music going on in the background. Some others need complete silence. So coming to an agreement on also the work environment, I think is really helpful as well.
Absolutely. And again, those headsets come in very handy for situations like that too. Now,
So, oh yeah.
go ahead, Jamie.
I was gonna say, so this one's a big one. So a lot of people have been messaging us about, well, how are we going to work from home? What technologies can we use? And then how do we manage with a child? And there was this meme going around on the internet, and it's actually true. It's from an article at the Washington Post that Sir Isaac Newton wrote like his major works. He developed calculus, all this other stuff when he was stuck at home in a farmhouse during a plague back in his day. And so they're like, well, we can all be productive. And a friend of mine responded with, yes, but did he have a child? And I was like, no, Sir Isaac Newton never had children. And that's probably the key point there. So having children at home is another big challenge on top of just adjusting to an entirely new work environment and new style of working with technology. So in this case, I have a child at home. She's 5 months old. Angeline does not have a child, but we consulted with others who did, and we've put together a list of suggestions that can possibly help with having children also in the home while trying to work.
And one of the suggestions that we had was, well, to create a structure for the children as well. You're putting yourself on a schedule, we'll get them on a schedule too. If they are of age to be going to school, then they had a schedule. They were on a schedule. So try to put them on a similar schedule where they are in school, homeschool, as it were. And depending on the age of the child also, you can even have them come up with the schedule, give them that responsibility to learn some self-management skills.
And I think, tying into those routines and those habits we build, have them eat at the same time they used to eat, have them nap at the same time. If they had PE at a certain time, have that be their exercise or their recess outside in the yard or downstairs in the basement in their play area, like whatever it is, but try and keep a regular schedule because they're going through a lot too. I mean, this is a huge adaptation. Their whole world has been turned upside down. And I think that helps tremendously, but it'll also help you learn when you can get your work done. And so speaking as someone who has an infant at home, she's actually on a schedule. So very early on, we got her on a schedule of eat, wake, sleep. So I know when to work because I can work when she's either doing her independent play or when she's napping. Fortunately, she's 5 months old, so she sleeps like 16 hours a day, which really helps. So I schedule my work time around her schedule because I know that that's when I can be the most productive, and I can schedule things like webinars when I know for certain that she will be down for a nap.
Now, you mentioned, keeping them on a routine that would be similar to school. One of the things that they may miss is the social interaction with their friends. So maybe part of that schedule could include a virtual play date with a friend. So schedule that with their friends' parents too, and plan that for them.
And I
Now,
think that's also healthy for you too. So if you're young enough that you're doing play dates with infants, I have a group that I meet for play dates on Fridays. We are keeping our meeting this Friday, but we're just doing it via digital technology because also at infant's age, it's really more for the mothers than for the baby anyway. So, but it's just also helpful that way as far as staying connected. And another great suggestion that I think came up was to keep them learning, whether it's online, whether it's watching educational videos, whether it's even child learning, where they're exploring their own interests since they have more free time. And that can keep them engaged, it can keep them motivated. It's a fact of life that we will be much more passionate and much more motivated when we are pursuing our passion projects. And your child probably has things that really drives and motivates them, that keeps their attention for longer. So if you can either reward them or keep them learning by letting them kind of lead their self-education this way, that's a way for you to get a little bit of time away to work as well.
Absolutely. And there are some great educational resources that are available online now, right? To help
Mhm.
implement what you might be having to pull together. There are great resources that you could get.
Yes, and we actually, there's a blog that goes with this webinar, and we're going to have some links to some Adventist resources for education there. So that should be really helpful. We can also, use the time to work on their weak points. So if they're not able to do distance learning with their regular school program and the regular teachers, if they struggle in math, you can order some workbooks or find an online program and have them work through some of those weaker points of theirs. And then you can use what motivates them to reward them or give them some free time or some free play afterwards.
Absolutely. And I like to remind us that sometimes the best reward that a child can have is just quality time with us. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily the sugary sweets.
yeah.
Um, that's the best for them.
And that ties into this other idea of taking breaks with your children. So when you're on a break, when you're on your lunch break, make that quality time with your kids. And that'll actually will hopefully help them respect your boundaries, that when you have to go back to your office, they can do their thing, especially if they're older children, while you work. If they get that lunchtime with you, if you can spend some time playing with them on your breaks and eating with them and engaging with them.
That's right. And it, continues to help develop their social skills too, because they learn best by emulating their parents. So it's a great teaching opportunity for us as well.
Yes, and just going back to this idea of working when kids are sleeping, most people have about an 8-hour workday. Every work situation is different, but if you're finding that you just can't get in everything you need to do during the day, the unfortunate thing is you might have to work while they sleep at night. And make sure you're still getting enough sleep, because your health has never been more important. But I know for many of us, my days kind of stretch out pretty long, from about 6 in the morning to about 9 at night sometimes. And that's tough. I mean, this is going to be a really hard time on parents with kids, but that's another option for you, is to just find times that when they're sleeping that you can work, as long as you're not sacrificing your own health.
And I think it's important to acknowledge, Jamie, as you just did, that this is not going to be easy. There
Yeah.
certainly will be challenges, and some days will probably be better than others.
Mhm.
But making adjustments, being flexible, and always remembering that taking care of your health during this time is really, really important.
Mhm.
And sometimes we may have to, sacrifice that for a day or two, but remember that it catches up with you.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely.
don't let it go for too long.
Yes, and I can tell you, you do have to be flexible, and sometimes I think manage your own expectations, because sometimes with my own daughter, she's on schedule for like 2 or 3 days, and just everything is smooth, and then she'll go through a growth spurt, and she's up like every few hours through the night, and I'm exhausted the next day, and you just have to kind of figure out how to make it work. But I think by acknowledging that it's hard and accepting that it's okay to need to take breaks and stuff, that'll also help you get through it. But tying into that is this idea of partnering with your spouse. And especially with older children, you can kind of split the day. If they're working from home, they can manage the children while working in the morning. You can manage the children while working in the evening. But also perhaps, even splitting days or taking care of children during, let's say your spouse is doing a webinar like we're doing right now. John's on baby duty. So if she erupts, if she explodes, he's going to take care of that for me so that I can keep engaged with this webinar.
And we have a comment from Heidi that I think is great, from her, speaking from her experience as well. She's saying that starting with motherhood, which has been 14 months now, congratulations, Heidi, that her work schedule adjusts in some way every 3 months. So she has discovered a pattern
Yes,
that her
there's
child puts her on, as it were. So keeping your eye out for those patterns is really important, and it prepares you mentally when you know that time is coming up again. And
yeah.
also just, that, okay, we just need to adjust something, but it's going to settle down again for a while.
And I'm not as experienced as Heidi. I've only been a mother for 5 months, but I can say exactly what she's talking about. So the schedule that I have our daughter on, has been somewhat dictated by our daughter. So as it adjusts, as the time adjusts, as she adjusts, and then her eat, wake, sleep times adjust, and then my work schedule adjusts along with that, because I actually find it's easier for me to adjust than to try and force her into my schedule. And yeah, so I can totally anticipate that she's going to keep adjusting as she grows, as her needs and everything changes. And another thing that can actually help is if you have older kids in the house, you can actually encourage them to help by playing with younger children, by mentoring, by tutoring them, and actually having them share in some of the responsibilities for an hour or so a day while you work.
Absolutely. And I think our last point on this topic might be a little challenging to talk
Yeah.
about, Jamie.
Yes. Well, and this is something I've come to accept, but accept that you will not have any free time while this is happening. And I would love, I'm a reader. There are certain things I would just love to do, but in order for me to stay healthy, there are certain things I have to prioritize. So if I have any time at all, it's usually to exercise or to take care of my health or some kind of self-care, but it's very brief. It's like 10 minutes here or there. I really don't have any free time. From, my only free time is when I'm sleeping, and thankfully I have a child that sleeps through the night. So she sleeps 12 hours a day through the night. That gives me some time to work, and I set boundaries with myself, and I make sure I get to bed, but I really don't have any downtime. And for many people, I know that that's going to be a challenge in, for however long this COVID-19 lockdown continues.
Yes, and a key point that you mentioned is sometimes you only have 10 minutes for exercise. Well, sometimes that really is enough, believe
Yes.
it or not. Taking 10-minute breaks, 3 times during the day actually can be just as effective and sometimes more effective than spending 1 hour of intense and then sitting the rest of the day. So it's okay if that's all you have, if that's the only chunk you can get, still take advantage of that brief moment.
Yes, and I can say from personal experience, it really does make me feel a lot better. Even when I'm tired, even when I'm drugged down or frustrated, just that little break to do something physical re-energizes me for like the next hour or so. And so it's really, really helpful. So I think our last big point is, what can you do if you're stuck at home, practicing the social distancing or physical distancing, I think you called it, but you can't work? How can we spend our time and make, to also still stave off the sense of, isolation and purpose? We can actually focus on self-education. There's a lot of online courses online that are being offered for free. So on our resource on our blog that you'll find at the end of this, but also on our website, there's actually 450 free online Ivy League courses right now. There's also Adventist learning community online, and just a host of other ways that you can learn and enhance your skills during this time period, so that maybe when it's time to go back to work, you have some extra tools in your pocket.
Absolutely. Think of it as an opportunity for personal growth, personal development. And that really does give each of us a sense of fulfillment, a sense of meaning, of more ability. So take the opportunities you have, if there is free time, to actually learn and hone in on your skills. Find books as well that could help you develop maybe abstract thinking, if that's something you need help on. So there's so much out there that you can get, and those online resources are very easily accessible.
Now, I have a little bit of a bonus tip, and since we are a religious institution, we always want to think about our spiritual health, especially in times of uncertainty. And so one of the things I wanted to kind of I forgot we had these other slides, but the bonus tip is essentially guard the edges of your day. So, and for me, what this means is starting and ending my day with prayer, with quiet, with reflection, and with the Bible, so that I can keep connected with God. Because I know as soon as my day starts, I'm not going to get any rest. I'm not going to get a break because I'm going to be going from thing to thing to thing to thing because life is more complicated right now.
Absolutely. And, simple practices like even journaling at the
Mhm,
end of the day, those are ways where you can de-stress,
mhm,
depressurize, and also, especially a prayer journal,
mhm, mhm.
so that you can reflect back. I found it to be most useful when during those hard days, you open up your journal and you recount the beautiful blessings that you've experienced in your past. Those hard days are bound to come to all of us. So keeping a record of the good things that have happened really are just precious, precious gifts that you can give yourself.
Absolutely. And another thing I would recommend is an hour or two before you intend to go to sleep, that you start winding down, that you limit technology, especially, I hate to say it, but limit the news, because I know for me, it's making me very stressed. And you want to limit your access to those electronics because it can disrupt your sleep. It can cause, depression. It can result in, also just too much news and too much information can cause increase in anxiety. And so in order to get the best rest possible when it is time to go to bed, it's best to kind of practice winding down an hour or two before bed, if at all possible. That also means dimming the lights, maybe turning off, the radio or whatever sound you have going on, just so that you can kind of ease into rest.
Absolutely. And, maybe make that quality time with the kids, story time, or, time for you and your spouse to just reconnect as you lay in bed. So really just de-stress and get your body and your brain prepared for the rest that it really needs.
Yes, yes. So that actually closes this portion of the webinar. If people have questions, we would love to hear from you, to engage with you. We have some additional resources. So this blog you can find at sdadata.blog/working from home. It goes through these 10 points in detail. We also have a landing page with some resources from working from home, and that landing page on sdadata.org/working from home will also actually have this webinar embedded on it, probably by the end of day tomorrow. And we have a whole resource section on COVID-19 resources for if you or your church are trying to go digital during this time. And of course, we have our NAD Health website, which is, just jam-packed full of very helpful information. And I see that we have some messages. Oh.
Yeah. So we appreciate all those who've been able to join us. If you do have a question or you want to share a tip that maybe you've come up with in the past few days, feel free to send it to us in the chat or the Q&A section.
Mhm.
We're happy to learn from each other in this process.
Yes, because I think this is a big learning curve for our society and for our church, and we just want to make sure that our members and our community can move into this as smoothly as possible and as healthy as possible. And we're getting a lot of thank yous from everyone, but not a lot of questions, and that's okay. But like Angeline said, if you would like to share your tips and what is working for you, or you just want to send us a picture of you working from home or your home office space, we'd appreciate that too, because again, it's about community and we are one big family.
Absolutely. And, speaking about the community, something to keep in mind, if you yourself are feeling frustrated or alone or just kind of lost with this transition, remember that somebody else probably is as well. So you
Mhm.
are not alone in this situation. So maybe, pick up the phone and give somebody a call. You might be actually a source of relief to them. And, in fact, just yesterday, I had a friend and colleague from Europe call me on WhatsApp yesterday because she was feeling rather alone with the isolation that they're facing there and those in our European countries. And we
Mhm.
had a great conversation for a while. So remember that you're not alone and we're all here together and we want to help support each other through this process.
Yes, yes. And with that, why don't we close in prayer? All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we've had together. We just pray that this information and these resources help our community, help our brothers and sisters as they transition to this new reality. We thank you for all the blessings that you've given us, and we just ask for your protection and your guidance during this time. In your name I pray. Amen.